This is a Set of the Sails holiday program.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the premiere episode of the Set of the Sails YouTube network. I'm Susan Sweetser. I'm your host, and we're very happy to have you all here this evening. Thanks so much for joining us. To start off, we have a very special guest. Jeff Moyer is a very talented musician and author who started losing his sight at the age of 5. He is now totally sightless in terms of his eyes, but he's very insightful in terms of everything else. And that's what we're going to showcase this evening. Also, 10 years ago, Jeff decided to become an organ donor. He saved the life of a woman that he didn't know. And regrettably, as a result of that, he now lives in acute and chronic pain on a daily basis. So when we say that Jeff Moyer is resilient, we're not playing. We really mean that. And Jeff is going to grace us with a song off his wonderful CD, Peace, Sweet Peace. He's going to play it live for us right now. And so without further ado, please help me welcome the troubadour of inclusion, Jeff Moyer. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here and to inaugurate this wonderful new YouTube network. The instrument I'm playing is called an autoharp, and it was based on an instrument crafted in Germany in 1862. This instrument, the autoharp, which was based on the zither, was created in the 1880s and was sold door to door in the United States as a parlor instrument when families made music as a way of life. There were a lot of children in the family. One would play the piano, one the guitar, one the saxophone, one the autoharp, one the violin. This was an easy instrument to play. It almost went out of existence, but for the intervention of Johnny Cash's mother-in-law, whose name as June Carter, as the grande dame of the Carter family, was heard throughout the Midwest on a radio station Saturday night. And the autoharp was heard and became a popular instrument again after nearly fading away. It's a beast to tune. I tuned it twice today, and I can understand why most people don't have the patience for it. But for holiday songs, there's nothing quite like it. I'm going to play a song called Children of the Light. At this season of the year, light is endemic in all spiritual traditions. The Hanukkah, the menorah for Hanukkah, the Christmas star of Bethlehem, in the Hindu tradition, the Dalamia, I'm not saying that correctly, but there's a tradition where it's a festival of light and across the board. So this is a song that addresses that. It's called Children of the Light, because truly we are all spiritual beings having a physical experience. I've done a lot of work at hospice, and I was told by a number of hospice volunteers that upon the end of this sojourn, they see people's light bodies rise up out of their physical form. They actually see that that child of light is headed home. See the sun with radiant power. See the light in bird and flower. For all creatures are empowered by the light the living loves. We are light, we are light, we are children of the light. With each breath, we know that we are children of the light. Feel the light within your heart. Feel the love the light imparts. Cast in one great beacon bright. We are children of the light. With each breath, we know that we are children of the light. From the stars in deepest space to the soul's most quiet place, cast in one great beacon bright, we are children of the light. Perfect in eternal sight, we are children of the light.
Wow, thank you so much. You know, it's really hard not to sing along with that song. But I have found that with a number of your songs, although I haven't heard them all because there are so many.
Thank
But
you, Susan. Yeah, I'm a child of the 60s, and typically I teach the chorus, but with this Zoom world, I haven't figured that out.
well, we will figure it out. And I do want to say that I really want to thank you for being here in our inaugural episode. And we will do everything we can to make sure that future episodes and particularly shows with you allow for more inclusivity and accessibility in terms of having captions, of having sign language, of having, you know, those resources that include everyone. And I know you have been in the vanguard of disability rights for a very long time. You were instrumental, if you'll pardon the pun, in the signing of the American with Disabilities Act. Would you tell us about your experience with that, please?
Sure. The ADA was founded on Section 504 of the Rehab Act, which was the first disability rights law regulations signed by Jimmy Carter in 1977. After a 4-year delay, there was by the Nixon administration, the Ford administration, and then the Carter administration, a delay from implementing the regulations that said that no otherwise qualified person could be denied services, employment, or education by any entity using federal money. Well, we staged the longest occupation of a federal building in US history. I was the troubadour for that demonstration, and that began the process. 13 years later, the ADA was signed, and I was involved in a minor way in that, but I knew Justin Dart Jr., who was the grandfather of it, and I asked him if I might be able to play the day of the signing the song that I had written toward the ADA's implementation, and he saw to it that I played at the US Senate at the reception following the signing at the White House. So I had the great honor of playing after John McCain spoke and Ted Kennedy and the other giants of the Senate that were the leaders of disability rights. Then I was
Wonderful.
involved with implementation of the law as part of the ADA implementation network, and it's a lifelong effort. We all have a lot of work to do to make our society truly inclusive. Thanks for including that, Susan.
Not at all. Can you name three things that really need to be done right now? What are the three top priorities of the disability movement?
It would depend on who you would talk to. For me, one of the most important things is access to signage for people who are blind or who can't read. Certainly, housing for people with cognitive disabilities, both that used to be called mental illness and cognitive disabilities, intellectual disabilities used to be called mental retardation, and broadly accessibility to information, which has many assets to factors to it, including, as you suggested, next time when we do a show, we're going to make open captioning so that people who can't hear can read what's being said, signing for people who read sign language, and audio description for people who can't see the screen.
Well, I certainly look forward to that time because if our mission here at Set of the Sales is anything, it is to be progressive, to offer more people opportunity, to hear people like yourself, to be involved in things that affect their lives. We're a feel good project, and we like it that way.
Well,
So,
I will tell you that as a nation, we have loved the world, and we have come a very long way in the last 50 years. Yeah, a tremendous long distance because of the advocacy of parents and people with disabilities. And thank you, Susan, and people like you who are forward leaning and want to make sure that the world is an inclusive place.
thank you. Well, I know so much of this, your involvement in the ADA and the story of your family and their fight against institutionalization and um, hiding people away are chronicled in your book Grit that I see there on your desk. A few copies.
Oh,
Um,
that happened to be set out? How interesting.
yeah, it did. I know. I'm so surprised. We
Well,
wouldn't have it any other way. Um, the book, if anyone's interested, the book is available on Amazon. It is also available on Jeff's website, jeffmoyer.com. So, if you're interested in hearing more of Jeff's personal story and the fight to to help his brother, um, it's really a very thought-provoking, poignant piece of history, and I urge you to avail yourself of it at your leisure. Anyhow, so now you have embarked on a book of short stories, and can you tell me what attracted you to the genre of the short story as opposed to a novel?
When after I donated the kidney, I lay on my back for 6 months, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I've been a writer since I was a child, poems and songs, and my book took me 13 years. But it occurred to me that writing a short story would be a simple thing to do, and I could get outside of my own experience and go into a creative world, making things up as I went along. So I wrote a couple short stories then, and really fell in love with it. And now my book, Underdog's Trial and Transformation, will be out in the spring. And you've invited me to read a story from that really is, it's the one story in the book that is seasonal, about the season of the year.
Yes, it's very. I find this particular story to be very appropriate for this time in the world and in our lives. And so, um, Jeff, please read us the story of the fir tree.
Thank you very much. And what I'll be doing is I have my computer here, which I don't know if you can see it, but it has Braille keys, a Braille display, but it talks. So I'll put on my headphones, and as I hear the story, I'll repeat it. So this is, rather than hand-eye coordination, this is ear-mouth coordination.
Right.
And honey, is the amplifier turned off?
I did turn it off.
Good.
You want it
Thank
on
you.
or off?
No, off.
Off.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn it off.
That's Christy, his very able-bodied roadie.
Oh, I thought I was going to kiss the lips. Oh, well. I'll have to rehearse that better. Christy and I have been married, have been together since that period after my kidney donation, and she saved my life. The light was fading from me after that, and Christy picked me up and dusted me off and got me back in the game.
Well, everyone needs a muse, and I think you got a good one.
Okay, here we go. The fir tree. No, that's not what we want to do. Come on, come back to it. All right, here we go. Now we're cooking. The fir tree. They lived in balance with all of life, wise in the ways of plants and kind to every being. The old man and woman lived a simple, contented life, deep in the forest, far from the bustle of the town. In the summer, their garden was abundant with bursting life. Healing herbs and roots filled crockery jars, and the stone cellar held the bounty of potatoes, apples, carrots, beans, turnips, onions, garlic, and the other plants needed to see them through the winter. When the snow came, their humble cabin was snug and tight against the winter's howling winds, and the fireplace warmed them with radiated heat from the hearthstone. Always before the first snow, they made the long trip into the village to trade their medicinal herbs for those things they could not grow. The man pulled a simple sled behind him, laden first with their summer's bounty, and then returning with the salt, flour, coffee, candles, and sundries they would gather at the village's shops. While in town, he would buy a pocket full of peppermint candies and pass out pieces happily to every child he saw. The woman's sweet smile and kindness warmed their children as well. The couple was known as loving grandparents, and their bountiful love touched everyone. As winter settled once again over the small cabin, the gentle woman began to weaken. Every morning she would arise later than the morning before, and with deep concern, her devoted husband watched the light fade in her beautiful brown eyes. He knew that their herbs did not contain the right medicine, and that he must go to the village and ask the doctor to come to their cabin to tend his failing wife. It had to be done. He would have to leave her to summon the doctor. With quiet resolve, he spent that day making the necessary preparations. He chopped down a sturdy sapling for the fire that would have to last all day while he walked into the village. He made strong chamomile tea and simmered potatoes, onions, garlic, and carrots. He wondered about what could please his wife and sustain her while he was gone. She lay in their feather bed by the cabin's one window, gazing outside at the fine fir tree that rose within her view. As dusk fell, the old man popped corn and strung it along sturdy thread from her beloved hand-carved sewing box, which he had crafted for her. Then, before dawn, he hung the strands of white popcorn on the deep green tree, so that red and white winter birds would fly into the fir's branches to eat and give his wife the pleasure of seeing them. Rosy finches, red and white crossbills, snow buntings, and candy apple red cardinals were known to them, and she had given the regulars names. He lovingly laid her winter meal next to her, a hearty bowl with chunks of life-sustaining potato, plump sections of orange carrots, and robust garlic cloves rested next to the mug of soothing chamomile tea on the small table within reach of his wife. Then he brought the night's fire back to life until the hearthstone once again radiated heat. With sure hands, he laid the fire that would have to last all day, laying in seasoned cherry and oak hardwood with pieces of soft pine, which would burn hot and ignite the sapling lengths that would keep the fire burning slowly. He kissed his wife's hands and told her that he would be back before nightfall. He quietly pulled the cabin door behind him and set off into the snowy morning. The snow was deep in the forest, and he grew tired as he wearily trod the miles through the winter wood. Often he rested, and his progress was slow. He finally walked into the quiet village as the winter sun slanted its cold light low in the sky. The old man asked for the doctor, and he was directed to one of the villagers' homes. There, the doctor was attending a tired woman's long labor and could not leave. But he stepped from her room and spoke with his old worried friend. Yes, he would come to their cabin as soon as he could possibly come. He had a horse and sleigh. But how would he find their cabin in the winter night? The sky was clear, and the moon would be full. The cabin sat atop a knoll at the end of the trail that opened from the forest. The old gentleman was quiet, and then told the doctor he would place candles on the fir tree's branches that stood before the cabin to provide guiding light. Then he left the doctor. Before heading back into the forest, he stopped at the general store just as the proprietor was shuttering his front window. The old man bought all the candles the shopkeeper had on hand and 6 apples. With his backpack full, he started back on his long walk home. Fatigue dragged at every step, and only the thought of his poor wife forced him to continue to go on. As he rested against a silver birch, he could see the silhouette of a reindeer standing motionless against the snowfield. He'd always loved the great gentle animals and often coaxed them to eat apples from his hand. He pulled an apple from his pack and with his pocket knife sliced into the crisp fruit. He held the apple slice toward the reindeer, and slowly the animal approached. The reindeer gently took the apple in his teeth and pulled it from the man's outstretched hand, and then quietly moved his body against the tired old man. Gratefully, without wondering at this miracle, the man leaned over the deer's back as the deer started forward. The beast's strong body generated warmth. Soon, His arms encircled the reindeer's neck, and he pulled himself onto the animal's back as it slowly walked through the woods toward the man's home. The gentle man spoke soothingly to the wild creature. Then they stopped at the edge of the woods, and he gave the deer the remainder of the apple and trudged the last distance to the cabin door. His wife slept fitfully as the last heat from the long day's fire lay in embers. The tired man quietly built the fire once more into a crackling blaze, and then, one by one, lit handfuls of candles and placed them on the ends of the pine's boughs. The tree still held some popcorn garlands, and they reflected the candles in the bright moonlight, making the tree a marvelous beacon on the rise of land above the forest floor. He heated the vegetable soup. As the aroma filled the little cabin, his wife stirred and turned toward him. She smiled a weak smile and asked him when the doctor was coming. He held her hand and kissed her brow and told her very soon. It was then in the distance he heard the harness bells of the doctor's sleigh. He pulled on his long fleece coat, still steaming by the hearth fire, and stepped from the cabin. He didn't need to call out. The doctor had been led to the cabin door by the signal light of the wondrous fir tree. He climbed down from the sleigh, carrying his worn brown leather bag, and quietly followed the old man into the warmth of the cabin. He refused the offered stew until he had done the healing work he had come to do. After a careful examination, he prepared a tincture using his mortar and pestle, adding medicinal red cider vinegar. He supported her head as he had her drink the first spoonful of the bitters. The doctor poured the elixir into a brown glass bottle and stopped it with a cork. He gave the medicine to the grateful husband. Then the doctor accepted the humble supper and talked to them both about the precarious nature of the long day's labor and successful birth, and the exhausted woman and her husband's gratitude. Then the physician bid them goodbye, promising to return in a few days to check on his patient. Good to his word, he arrived early 3 days hence and found his patient sitting up and smiling. She returned to vitality and baked molasses cake, the couple's traditional Christmas celebratory treat. Early one afternoon just before Christmas, the doctor arrived unexpectedly and announced that they were to be his guests at a special holiday celebration in the village that day. After a few minutes' preparation, they climbed into his waiting sleigh and rode under a warm deer pelt through the snowy forest and into the town. They arrived at the village hall and were greeted by laughing children who thronged the sleigh and called out to the old couple, beloved by elders and young alike for their kindness and wisdom. They were led into the great hall where a fire roared in the wide hearth and filled the room with warm cheer. The couple gazed and wondered what they saw. A great fir tree had been brought into the hall and decorated with popcorn and cranberry strands. Dozens of small candles glowed at the end of the fir's outstretched branches, filling the room with magical light. As they stared in wonder, the doctor stood by their side. The tree that guided me to your cabin was so beautiful that I couldn't keep it out of my mind. When I told your many friends about your beacon tree, we decided to recreate it for everyone to enjoy and to invite you to be our guests of honor at this special holiday party. The gentle lady's snowy tresses and the old man's white beard and hair reflected the light of the candles. His wife's soft, kind eyes welled with tears at the abundance of the town's generosity. Cakes and pies, cheeses, and festive food of all kinds covered long tables and bowls of winter punch steamed at both ends of the abundant feast. Hanukkah menorahs shone above the honey cakes, and children played with dreidels on the wide wooden planks of the floor. Hanukkah golden coin candies were mixed with the peppermint candy canes throughout the feast tables. For the rest of their long lives, every Christmas Eve, the couple rode in the doctor's sleigh into the town where the lovely light of Christmas and Hanukkah awaited them. Peace and goodwill filled every heart.
Wow. Thank you so much. And what a perfect, what a fitting tribute to the first day of Kwanzaa, which this is. It's Unity Day. The first night of Kwanzaa is about unity, and certainly this story speaks to that as well. You know, it's so interesting when I hear you reading it and the images that you have created. You know, I see an animation. You know, I see, I just see a very wonderful um, way to have this presented to the world in a different way. But wow, how wonderful that that we've heard this for the first time. And thank you, because I know it's the technology that you use to relate to the world is different than a lot of people, but it really speaks to how important having the right tools are to people with disability challenges in order to have their best lives. You
No, you're
know,
right.
having a disability does not make anyone less creative. As a matter of fact, I think your other senses become very vigilant, and there's a wealth, there's a treasure trove of opportunity there, and I really just want to thank you for being willing to bring us into your home studio and sharing these wonderful things with us. So thank
Well,
you.
your idea was wonderful, and I loved it, the opportunity. And we're going to close with a creation that really is a combination of a song from my album Peace Sweet Peace and your and Bill's, or I don't know if it was yours alone, but your creativity, which brought visual elements to it. And Christy saw it and described it to me, and you have worked on it, of course, and seen it, and it brought tears to three of our three eyes. So yeah, it's what you have done is quite wonderful.
Thank you. Well, everything we do here at Set of the Sales is collaborative. No one works alone. We have ideas and we bring them together and they come to fruition. And so for us it's the it's the best part of manifestation is to be able to showcase someone else's creativity through some of our own. Um, so I think if we can get um, Peace, Sweet Peace, the title track to your wonderful album, queued up. Here it is. Let's enjoy Sweet Peace, Sweet Peace, Sweet Peace. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Christy, for sharing with us this evening. This concludes our first show on the Set of the Sales Network. I hope you will join us again. By all means, if you are interested in purchasing any of Jeff's music, it's all available at jeffmoyer.com, along with many other treats. So, this is Susan Sweetser, your host, Set of the Sales, wishing you peace, safe travels, and happy trails until we meet again. Good night.